We continue our look back at the first four hearings of the January 6th committee with hearing number 3. This one focused on the pressure campaign that Trump waged on Vice President Mike Pence. And what we learned was frankly chilling. Take a listen to our coverage immediately following that hearing. Today, we learned how close the then Vice President of the United States came to getting killed on January the 6th, 2021.
Upon arriving there was further discussion as to whether or not we were going to leave the Capitol complex or stay where we were.
Vice President Pence and his team ultimately were led to a secure location where they stayed for the next 4.5 hours, barely missing rioters a few feet away.
Approximately 40 feet. That's all there was. 40 feet between the vice president and the mob.
40 feet. That was Democratic Congressman Pete Aguilar of California, who today led most of the hearing. We essentially got what seemed to be confirmation that Donald Trump, the president of the United States at the time, wasn't just pressing Mike Pence to do his bidding. Trump was inciting the mob that went after his own vice president. We heard from retired Judge J. Michael Luttig and Greg Jacob, a key legal advisor to Mike Pence, who was with him at the Capitol on 1/6. We got video testimony from Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Short, and even former advisors to President Trump himself. We also saw shocking images for the first time. Mike Pence reading tweets from Trump condemning him while the violence was underway at the Capitol. Who knows what was going through Pence's mind? But it wasn't just pressure that Donald Trump put on Vice President Pence. In tape testimony, we heard Trump's former personal assistant, Nick Luna, recount a phone call that Trump was having with Pence from the Oval Office before January the 6th. These are images from that moment. Luna, who could only hear Trump, described the call.
Did you hear any part of the phone call, even if just the end that the president was speaking from?
I did, yes.
All right, and what did you hear?
So as I was dropping off the note, my memory, I remember hearing the word wimp. Either he called him a wimp. I don't remember if he said, "You are a wimp, you'll be a wimp." Wimp is the word I remember.
Congressman Aguilar also told us about a recent DOJ court filing in which a confidential informant from the Proud Boys told the FBI, get this, that they would have killed Mike Pence and Speaker Nancy Pelosi if given the chance. This isn't just about political pressure from the president or a mob riot incited by the president. This is about people planning to kill our most senior political figures on January the 6th. This is why a lot of Republicans didn't want these hearings to happen. They don't want to hear this. But I do hope Americans are taking the extent of what happened on January the 6th as seriously as they should. Congressman Aguilar, during his questioning of Greg Jacob, reminded us of a chilling passage from Bob Woodward and Robert Costa's recent book, Peril.
The president said, quote, "If these people say you have the power, wouldn't you want to?" The vice president says, quote, "I wouldn't want any one person to have that authority." The president responds, "But wouldn't it almost be cool to have that power?" Vice president is reported to have said, "No, look, I've read this, and I don't see a way to do it."
I never thought I'd ever say this, but thank God for Mike Pence on that day. Only on that day, because it's worth pointing out that since that day, he's gone AWOL. He doesn't have anything to say about all of the revelations we learned today and that we're about to discuss. He didn't attend today's hearing. He didn't speak to the committee. He was the elephant who wasn't even in the room. So what should we make of how explosive today's Select Committee hearing, the longest hearing so far, how explosive it was? Joining me now to discuss all of this, who better to talk to than Betsy Woodruff Swan, Politico national correspondent, someone who's followed the committee since its inception. Betsy, what did you make of today's committee? It was, over 2.5 hours long. We learned about violence, we learned about threats, we learned about pressure, we learned about illegality, we learned about unconstitutionality. What stood out to you?
It was a lot to process, and it was definitely one of the most technically challenging hearings to listen to because it was all wall-to-wall lawyers. But at the same time, some of the big takeaways from this hearing are the sort of thing that anyone of just about any age can understand. A video clip that I found stunning is one where Eric Hirschman, who was an attorney in the Trump White House, describes having a conversation with John Eastman on January 7th. The day after this horrific violent attack, when Eastman appears to have called him to talk about some sort of future legal remedies that might have been available. And in that clip, Hirschman says that he told Eastman, seriously, you're going to need a good criminal defense lawyer. Also, Hirschman described how he told Eastman that if Eastman moved forward with the plans for January 6th, prior to that day, that there would be riots in the street, literally predicting that violence would break out as a result.
Let me jump in and let's play that. I'm glad you highlighted it. It was a very chilling moment. Let's play Eric Hirschman, former Trump lawyer, saying that.
I said, you're completely crazy. I said, you're going to turn around and tell 78 plus million people in this country that your theory is this is how you're going to invalidate their votes because you think the election was stolen. And I said, they're not going to tolerate that. I said, you're going to cause riots in the streets.
And as I expressed to him, that issue might well then have to be decided in the streets. Because if we can't work it out politically, we've already seen how charged up people are about this election. And so it would be a disastrous situation to be in.
So, I mean, as I say, so much to process, as you put it as well. We're talking about people having internal conversations at the time about violence on the streets. What seems so obvious to me today is that people like yourself have done brilliant reporting over the last few months about, you know, what we're learning, the revelations, what we knew. Today it became very clear. They knew everything at the time. What we've learned piecemeal in the last 18 months, Trump knew on the day. They all knew what they were doing was wrong. They all knew what they were doing had no basis in the Constitution or the law. In fact, you have John Eastman. I want to play one more clip to you. John Eastman asking for a pardon, this notorious Trump lawyer. Have a listen.
Dr. Eastman's email stated, quote, I've decided that I should be on the pardon list, if that is still in the works. Dr. Eastman did not receive his presidential pardon. So let's see what Dr. Eastman did as a result when he was deposed by this committee.
I assert my Fifth Amendment right against being compelled to be a witness against myself.
Did the Trump legal team ask you to prepare a memorandum regarding the vice president's role in the counting of electoral votes at the joint session of Congress on January 6, 2022?
Betsy, every American should know who John Eastman is after today, should they not?
That clip, the juxtaposition of those two clips in the hearing, I found to be one of the most stunning moments. Eastman asking for a pardon and then pleading the Fifth when being presented with very basic factual questions about the legal work he did for the president. But one other key, vastly important new detail that we got out of this hearing was that as early as October of 2020, Eastman himself wrote in a legal memo that the vice president could not send electoral college votes back to the states, and that the role the vice president would have played in the electoral counting process was ministerial. That, in my view, is really damning because it was Eastman, absent political pressure, absent all the craziness of the president trying to get him to be helpful, absent all of that, in a moment of calm and consideration, saying, oh yeah, this thing we're talking about, this isn't real. This is really nutty. The fact that Eastman abandoned that common sense, legally rational, historically based position on how the law works when it became politically convenient kind of tells you all you need to know about this man and about a president who chose to rely on him to decide whether or not to support a peaceful transition of power.